This is a short briefing introducing a consultation recently launched by DERA in relation to rethinking our resources, measures for climate action and a circular economy in Northern Ireland. We'll now hear from Rachel Hook, Head of Resources and Waste Strategy at DERA, who will introduce the consultation further.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar, which is designed to cover the consultation Rethinking Our Resources, Measures for Climate Action and a Circular Economy in Northern Ireland. So I just wanted to briefly cover what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to look at what the consultation is about. We're also going to talk about why it's needed and cover some of our statutory obligations with regards to recycling. We'll also cover the key proposals contained within the consultation, as well as what impact those proposals may have for our stakeholders. And then finally, we'll cover next steps. The consultation is open now and will close on the 30th of May. You can find information about it and a link to respond on the DERA website. On the screen now, you can see a list of underpinning legislation and targets, which have helped to inform this consultation and the 26 proposals which are laid out within it. The first one I'd like to cover is the Climate Change Act. This landmark legislation was passed in 2022, and it contains a number of significant targets for Northern Ireland to decarbonise and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Crucially, for this consultation, it sets out a requirement for at least 70% of our waste to be recycled by 2030. And this is a challenging target, and no doubt cannot be achieved without changes being made to how we currently collect our material and the types of material that we collect, as well as where that material is collected from. Next on the slide then, we have the Waste and Contaminated Land Order. Now, this piece of legislation was amended in 2020 to update the targets and add in some new features. So the targets you can see there on the screen, the key target is 65% by 2035, and then we have two interim targets of 55% by 2025 and 60% by 2030. We also must send less than 10% of our waste to landfill by 2035 as well. Not only does this set out targets, but it also has extended the definition of what municipal means. Up until now, municipal has really been a catch-all term for household waste. However, with the amendments to this legislation, it has now brought into scope any business or organisation which produces waste similar in nature to that produced from households. Around 57,000 businesses in Northern Ireland will be affected by this, and it includes things such as schools, hospitals, public buildings, offices, shops, and so on. Finally, on this slide, we have the Waste Circular Economy Amendment Regulations, and these added a new test for collections to include comparable quality. Every council can undertake what's known as a TEEP test. TEEP stands for Technical, Environmental and Economic. Northern Ireland has added in a new test for comparable quality. And this means that when councils are conducting a TEEP test, they will also need to take into consideration the quality of material collected through the chosen collection system. In addition to this, the regulations also revoked commingling as an acceptable separate form of collection. So, what are we hoping to achieve with this consultation? Unlike the discussion document, which was launched in 2020, we are seeking to implement new policy and legislation as a result of this consultation. Once the consultation closes and we've had time to analyse responses, we will be presenting the Minister with potential policy options for him to make a decision on what will be taken forward. But on the screen now, you can see 9 boxes which set out broadly what we're hoping to achieve. The first thing is to improve not just the quantity of what we recycle, but the quality of what we recycle. Improved quality allows more material to be retained within Northern Ireland and helps to drive a low carbon circular economy. We also want to improve reductions in food waste. Since the food waste regulations came into force in 2017, we have diverted a significant portion of biodegradable waste from landfill, but there is definitely room for improvement. Around 30% of what's in our black bins, our general waste bins at home, is still food waste, and we want to make sure that businesses are recycling their food waste correctly as well. We want to cut the amount of waste that goes to landfill, and this isn't just good for the environment, but it will save councils money as they won't have to pay landfill tax. We want to get businesses on board to increase recycling rates. We want to future-proof our collection services. We know that into the future there will be additional materials that will need to be collected for recycling. For example, in 2027, we will be introducing the curbside collection of flexible plastic films and packaging. Changes that we make now will make these introductions in the future easier to deal with. We also want to meet our challenging targets and, as well as that, help to tackle climate change and support the transition to a low-carbon circular economy. But I suppose the key thing that we want to achieve is to ensure that recycling is consistent. Recycling shouldn't be difficult, and we want to make sure that what people do at home is the same as what people do at work or at school, at the hospital, at the doctors, whatever setting they're in, it's going to be easy and it's going to be consistent. Thank you for listening.
We'll now hear from Debbie Nesbitt, Sector Specialist at WRAP, who'll run through some of the key proposals in the consultation that affect household waste.
Theme 1 of the consultation concentrates on transforming household waste collections in Northern Ireland. In the consultation, 12 proposals are presented to seek views on improvements to collections from households, with an intention to improve commonality, drive up recycling rates, and improve the quality of materials collected. The changes proposed will be the biggest changes to household waste collections for many years. It will affect every house in Northern Ireland, giving the potential for significant positive impacts to the environment and local economy. The changes are being proposed to ensure green growth and circular economy ambitions are realised, keeping as much of our resources as possible within the local economy for reprocessing.
So what's in our bin? The diagram on the left shows the composition of residual waste in Northern Ireland from 2017, and the one on the right illustrates the findings of a compositional analysis undertaken across 2 councils during 2023. The waste compositional analysis in 2017 suggests that although there is a requirement for separate curbside food waste collection provided by councils to all households, just under 25% of the residual waste bin is still food waste. Just over 15% of our residual waste is paper and cardboard, and 7% is glass. Around 55% of what people put in their residual waste bins is potentially recyclable material. These figures indicate the real opportunities to further reduce waste to landfill and increase recycling in Northern Ireland. The recent waste compositional analysis study undertaken last year shows similar trends. It tells us that there's still plastic, glass, paper and cardboard and food waste in the residual bin. The results from the latest compositional analysis study shows us that food waste content has increased to approximately 30% in the bin. In summary, 48.5% of what people put in their residual waste bins is currently accepted for recycling at the curbside. We need to get this material out of residual bins and into recycling and organic bins. DARA plan to build on these data surveys with further analysis planned for each council in Northern Ireland over the next few years. A key proposal in the consultation is to restrict the residual waste capacity for households in Northern Ireland to a maximum of 90 litres per week, delivered either via 180 litre wheeled bin collected fortnightly or a 240 litre wheeled bin collected every 3 weeks. Councils would decide on the most appropriate methodology for their own circumstances. Currently in Northern Ireland, most councils collect the equivalent of 120 litres of residual waste per week, normally by 240 litre wheeled bins collected fortnightly. Average residual waste capacity provided by councils in Wales, the highest performing recycling nation in the UK, shows that households have less than 100 litres per week for residual waste. Swansea Council, for example, provides 60 litres per week. RAP's Recycling Tracker Survey, conducted in 2020, found that there is a strong correlation with good recycling performance and restricted residual capacity. Almost 3/4, 74%, of those with a 3 to 4 weekly collection of residual waste use a food waste recycling service, as do 62% of those with an effective residual waste capacity of 90 litres or less per week. Many councils in other areas have enhanced their recycling collections at the same time as the restriction to residual waste is implemented. Such enhancements include increasing the range of materials collected, increasing the frequency of the recycling collections, or increasing the available recycling capacity to ensure that it is proportionate with the material now being sought. It is important to note 4 other factors are expected to play a role in further reducing the residual waste presented for collection by households across Northern Ireland over the next decade. They are proposals in this consultation focused on commonality in collections, packaging extended producer responsibility, deposit return scheme, and clear and consistent communication and engagement with people. With any restriction of residual waste, councils would introduce standardised supporting local collection policies. For example, measures to assist households with larger families and collection of absorbent hygiene products. Ensuring a common set of materials will help avoid confusion, enable harmonious communications to be promoted, improve consistency and quality in recycling, which in turn supports more local reprocessing of material and the transition to circularity. The consultation proposes a core set of recyclable waste streams to be collected from all households, including flats and high-rise properties. The core set are glass bottles and containers, paper and cardboard, plastics, including cartons, and metal packaging. DARA expect all councils to be able to provide a curbside collection of the core dry recyclables within 2 years of notification of a statutory requirement, by which time implementation is expected to be complete. Most councils are already collecting these core materials, but this recognises where changes may be required. New materials would only be added to the core set when supported by evidence that materials can reasonably be collected for recycling and can reasonably be recycled. By this we mean that there is capacity locally in Northern Ireland, Great Britain and Ireland, or if necessary further afield into Europe, that it can technically be recycled, and the cost of reprocessing is not prohibitive. The UK nations have previously consulted on the introduction of films and flexible packaging to curbside recycling collections by the 1st of April 2027 in all nations as part of the packaging EPR scheme. This was published in the consultation response in March 2022. This obligation will be set in forthcoming regulations which will be applicable in Northern Ireland, with the costs being met by packaging producers. In the consultation, DARA are also seeking views on recycling exemptions. The renaming of TEEP to quality is considered significant to raise the profile of the importance of comparable quality. This is fundamental to the new test, whilst retaining the technical, economic and environmental aspects of the assessment.
RAP's analysis of end destination data and the type of recycling service offered to households indicate a link between the type of collection and the end destination. For those councils offering 100% commingled collections including glass, between 52% and 86% of paper and card is sent to destinations outside of the United Kingdom and outside of the European Union. For the councils operating two-stream and multi-stream collections with some commingled collection schemes that do not include glass, the proportion is lower, between 5% and 44% depending on the council. This evidence from Waste Data Flow and My Recycling NI website indicates that we could change the way we collect and process materials to make the proportion recycled locally far higher by minimising mixing and subsequent contamination of materials. This will maximise the value of resources and reduce reliance on the export of materials. It will boost our economy, create green jobs, and enable businesses to meet their current and forthcoming climate obligations and reduce carbon emissions by avoiding landfill and the use of new virgin materials. Research on glass and plastic recycling shows that greater separation of materials increases the likelihood of these resources being used in closed-loop recycling processes, which significantly enhances the environmental and economic benefits. DARA wishes to see materials reprocessed as close to the place of production and collection as possible. Shorter material supply chains, end destination visibility and reporting, and higher quality outputs are all conducive to the emerging requirements of producers, and these will only become more of a priority as packaging extended producer responsibility evolves. The default position is for 4 separate recycled streams of the core materials, This need not be a separate container for each material stream, but must be collected separately from other wastes and must be collected for recycling or composting. 4 collection options are set out for consideration in the consultation. They are 3-stream, 2-stream with fibre separate, 2-stream with glass separate, and fully commingled. In a 3-stream collection, paper and card would be the first stream, plastics and metals would be the second stream, and glass would make up the third stream. In the 2-stream with fibres separate, paper and card would be the first stream, plastics, metal and glass would be the second stream. In the 2-stream with glass separate, glass would be the first stream, with paper and card, plastics and metals as the other stream. And then we have fully commingled, where all 4 streams would be collected in one container. DARA are suggesting a set of conditions should be set out that define comparable quality, best environmental outcome, technical feasibility, and disproportionate economic cost. Where conditions are met, an exception may apply, and 2 or more recyclable waste streams may be collected together from households. The department are keen to recognise their unique position in terms of preserving quality and proposing to name these exemptions quality, with the notion of comparable quality being fundamental to this new test, whilst retaining the technical, economic and environmental aspects of the assessment. No other devolved administration in the UK has material quality enshrined in its legislation. This presents an opportunity for Northern Ireland to set a higher standard for the UK in terms of recycling and reprocessing, as well as leading the way in transitioning to a circular economy. To assist with monitoring of quality, there is a proposal for similar guidance on MRF sampling to that used in England and Wales, and that this should be introduced in Northern Ireland to ensure that quality of input and outputs of MRFs can be quantified. When considering comparable quality, the use of resulting recyclate collected, for example the percentage of material entering closed or open loop recycling, percentage process losses from sorting, and percentage contamination levels should all be considered as evidence factors. DARA also wants to increase food waste recycling, Annual waste statistics indicate that a significant amount of food and garden waste from households continues to end up in landfill, despite a comprehensive organics collection service being in place to approximately 98% of households of Northern Ireland. The majority of food waste in Northern Ireland is collected mixed with garden waste and is sent for in-vessel composting within the province. Data shows that over 141,000 tonnes of biodegradable waste were sent to landfill in the year 21 to 22, accounting for almost 55% of the total waste landfilled. When sent to landfill, food and garden waste releases methane into the atmosphere, which contributes to climate change. Indeed, methane from landfill sites is the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions within the waste sector in Northern Ireland. Currently, all councils in Northern Ireland offer a collection of food and garden waste separately from residual waste to nearly all households. According to data provided by councils to RAP, 12.7% of households receive a separate food waste collection on a weekly basis, and approximately 85.6% of households receive a collection of food waste mixed with garden waste, usually on a fortnightly basis. Research from other parts of the United Kingdom shows that collecting food waste mixed with garden waste fortnightly can lead to lower yields compared to a weekly separate food waste collection when accounting for comparable residual waste collection systems and comparable levels of deprivation. The department are therefore seeking views to make revisions to increase capture rates and improve the diversion of food waste from disposal. To this, they want to ensure all householders, including those living in flats and high-rise properties, can recycle more and in time have access to separate weekly food waste recycling collections. When treated at an aerobic digestion plant, food waste breaks down in a controlled way and the methane can be converted into gas called biomethane that can be fed into the national gas grid and used to generate electricity and or heat, or used as a vehicle fuel. The anaerobic digestion process also produces a nutrient-rich fertiliser called digestate that farmers can use in place of chemical fertilisers. In-vessel composting can be used to treat food and garden waste mixtures where the organic matter breaks down into a material suitable for use as a soil conditioner and that is used in agriculture and horticulture. The department regards the move to anaerobic digestion for the treatment of separately collected food waste as an integral part of growing Northern Ireland's circular economy and contributing to the greening of Northern Ireland's energy infrastructure. However, they remain cognizant of the environmental disbenefits of both anaerobic digestion and in-vessel composting processes and will seek to mitigate these as far as possible through effective policy and legislation. DAERA are also mindful of the number of pre-existing long-term contracts for in-vessel composting with Northern Ireland councils that may preclude a change to separate weekly food waste collections and would like to seek council views on this. Councils need to start planning for this now, for the end of these contracts and potential opportunities for new operations. Most of us want to do the right thing when we recycle. Even with greater consistency of what can and cannot be recycled, sometimes people will make mistakes. Feedback on when wrong items have been placed in containers is vital to improve the quality of recycling and to reduce contamination. Effective communication with people when they're not recycling correctly will ultimately lead to more interventions from and potentially more requirements from the likes of councils. DAERA wishes to understand more on what appropriate enforcement mechanisms might look like.
Now we'll hear from Keith Patterson, a sector specialist at RAP, who will run through some of the key proposals in the consultation in relation to non-household municipal waste.
The second theme of the consultation focuses on improving recycling of non-household municipal waste. Municipal waste is defined as both waste from households and waste from businesses and other non-household organisations. This is waste which is similar in nature and composition to waste generated by households. A wide range of private and public sector organisations have been identified as generating municipal waste. Within the definition of NHM, obligated organisations fall into various sectors, and DERA is seeking to focus on those sectors producing waste most similar in nature to that produced by households. Therefore, the sectors in focus are hospitality, retail and wholesale, transport and storage, food manufacturing, education, healthcare, and offices and other services. This last category includes cinemas, libraries, sports centres, and tourist information centres, for example. Although many businesses and organisations may already recycle a lot of their waste, a large proportion which generate municipal waste still have the potential to significantly increase the quality and quantity of recycling through using recycling collection services. This potential was identified in previous research, such as RAP's Municipal Recycling Potential in Northern Ireland report, available on DERA's website. Around 770,000 tonnes of waste in Northern Ireland is estimated to be generated each year from the obligated NHM sectors. From this, it's estimated that around 340,000 tonnes could be collected as dry recycling, that's paper, card, plastics, metals and glass, for example. Almost 180,000 tonnes of municipal food waste is available for recycling, and there's an estimated 125,000 tonnes of materials which are deemed to be non-recyclable. Household waste and recycling data is currently reported by councils through Waste Data Flow and audited by the Northern Ireland Environment Agency. There is no similar requirement to report non-household waste and recycling data, although plans for a future UK-wide digital waste tracking service should address this. To grow the circular economy in Northern Ireland, it will be necessary to increase the collection for recycling of recyclables and food waste from the NHM sectors. As well as delivering the desired step change in resource management and carbon emissions reductions, it will also ensure we keep pace with other countries on recycling and crucially allow us to meet our ambitious new recycling targets. It's suggested that the addition of new materials to the core set of dry recyclables would only be made when there's supporting evidence which demonstrates that the material can reasonably be collected for recycling and be recycled. By recycled, DERA means that there is capacity in Northern Ireland, the UK or Europe that it can technically be recycled and that the cost of reprocessing is not prohibitive. The changes for businesses and NHM sectors are being driven by agreed and emerging extended producer responsibility policies for packaging materials. For example, flexible plastic packaging to be added to the core set of dry recyclables. The cost of collection and sorting will need to be covered by producer payments under EPR, which is required from the 31st of March 2027. Views are being sought on the practical solutions and barriers to segregating flexible plastic packaging from residual waste for recycling from businesses and NHM sectors. DERA is proposing to mirror the approach suggested for household waste to require a core set of materials, again glass, paper, card, metals and plastics for example, to be collected in a consistent way so that this becomes the norm for everyone in Northern Ireland. It will improve recycling behaviour at home, school and at work. It should be noted that responses to the extension of the definition of NHM and application of a core set and consistency has received positive responses in previous discussion documents from these sectors. Earlier we described DERA's proposals to improve recycling from households. DERA is seeking to apply those same principles to non-household waste and recycling collections. To achieve the high quality recycling necessary for a circular economy and to ensure we can reprocess as much of the material locally as possible, the core set of dry recyclables must be collected separately from each other, except where comparable quality can be achieved through co-collection of those materials, or where separate collection is not technically feasible, would entail disproportionate economic cost, or does not deliver the best environmental outcome. DERA is proposing an exemption for the collection of metals and plastics. Expanding the breadth of materials collected for recycling will make more secondary material available for reprocessors. Yet just as pressing is the need to improve the quality of recyclate collected for reprocessing, ensuring that contamination levels from non-target or non-recyclable materials are reduced and where possible eliminated. Challenging export markets for dry recyclables in recent years have highlighted the need to increase the quality of materials collected for recycling and to reduce contamination. It's therefore DERA's aim to maximise the capture of recyclables, improve the quality of what is collected, and ideally process these materials in Northern Ireland, in so doing contributing to the local economy. When considering significant environmental benefit and comparable quality, a number of factors should be considered to assess the suitability of any collection system. These include the end use of the recyclate, i.e. whether it's entering a closed loop or open loop recycling process, any process loss, and contamination levels. Waste collectors will therefore be encouraged to consider the broader principles of environmental benefit and comparable quality alongside economic and technical factors when they are determining non-household municipal collection systems. DAERA recognises there may be a need to be flexible and does not wish to create a burden on businesses nor on the duty of councils to collect business waste. DAERA is asking for feedback on alternative solutions for business waste and business recycling, for example through making provision at existing household waste recycling centres. DAERA wants to ensure that any written assessments for the non-household municipal sectors are consistent and avoid unnecessary burden on waste collectors and on the Northern Ireland Environment Agency. For food waste, DAERA is now proposing to review the food waste regulations to ensure that all obligated businesses segregate food waste for separate collection. They propose to extend the regulations to include all businesses regardless of size and the amount of food waste generated. Currently, the regulations place an obligation on food businesses producing more than 5 kilograms of food waste per week. DAERA proposes that any newly obligated businesses would have 2 years to implement this following adoption, and are consulting on the need or rationale for this to be a longer time frame for small and micro businesses. As with food waste collected from households, DAERA would like to see that this material is processed via anaerobic digestion with its wider environmental gains, but recognises local challenges and are inviting views on this. It's recognised that there may be greater barriers to recycling for small firms, that's those employing between 10 and 50 full-time equivalent staff, and for micro firms, that's those employing up to 9 full-time equivalent staff, with further barriers to recycling potentially faced by those businesses operating in rural locations and businesses based in homes. DAERA therefore wishes to receive views on options which could exempt micro or small firms from the changes or provide them with additional time to prepare. DAERA is keen to get views on the following 2 options. Option 1, exemption. That is, micro and small firms or producers of non-household municipal waste should be exempt from the requirement to arrange for the collection of materials for recycling in accordance with the arrangements. And option 2, phasing in. That is, that micro and small firms or producers of non-household municipal waste are phased into the proposed recycling requirements after the enactment of the legislation. DAERA wants to understand the barriers to waste collectors' abilities to collect the required dry recyclable streams from all of the non-household municipal sectors, including from small and micro firms, in the time frame proposed in the consultation. Such barriers may include collection and treatment contract limitations, materials recycling facility infrastructure and or capacity, container procurement and any challenges with the distribution of those containers, reprocessing availability, end market volatility or a lack of end markets, and cost burdens such as collecting from rural locations through to collectors setting up new or expanded collection services. Franchising or zoning of waste or recycling collection services could be used as an approach to alleviate costs on businesses, where partnerships or local councils would arrange for the collection of waste and recycling from businesses and other similar organisations in a defined geographic area, for example in a town or a business improvement district, through an awarded contract. Such systems reduce the number of waste collectors operating in a zoned or franchised area and therefore reduce the number of vehicles used and optimise collection efficiencies to provide a reduced cost to businesses. The size of the zoned area and the design of any framework contract could be devised to ensure that competition still exists in the market while improving the efficiencies in delivery. Such schemes exist more commonly in other countries than the UK currently. Non-household municipal waste collection, zoning and franchising has significant potential to improve the efficiency of collections, increase the quality and quantity of materials collected for recycling by using efficiency savings to boost communications, reduce the number of collection vehicles on the roads, promote methods to address air quality, and reduce carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions. DERA is therefore seeking views on types of zoning, the sizes of zones and/or collaborative procurement options, the role of stakeholders, and the viability of commercial waste bring sites, and the extension of public recycling centres. As well as dedicated collections from business or non-household municipal premises, extending the range of facilities where waste or recyclables could be taken for disposal or recycling could help small or micro firms to recycle more, whilst increasing convenience, reducing cost, and any space issues. Such facilities could be developed for small firms to deposit high quality recyclables, or could be attached to other waste management facilities such as recycling centres.
Okay, well, we've heard lots of really interesting information so far today. And finally, I'd like to just take a moment to recap on the importance of this consultation. If we don't change the way that we're managing our resources, by 2050, our existing natural resources will be depleted and irreparable damage will have been done to the planet. And in turn, this will have a devastating impact on humanity and nature. Climate change is an issue that affects everyone living on our planet. And not only that, it requires action from everyone. Although Northern Ireland is the smallest region of the UK with a population of just 1.9 million people, we have an opportunity to lead the way in changing the way we live, the way we consume, and the way we manage waste. And implementing a low carbon circular economy is part of the solution. The Circularity Gap report found that Northern Ireland imports and extracts around 31.5 million tonnes of materials annually. That's the equivalent weight of nearly 16 million cars, or around 17 tonnes of material for every person living in Northern Ireland. For a country the size and population of Northern Ireland, we are consuming and wasting a disproportionate amount of the Earth's precious natural resources. Our current linear economy, where we take, make, use, and waste, means that 92% or 33.6 million tonnes of material is not cycled back into the Northern Ireland economy. This consultation seeks to gather views on the new policies and how they will be implemented, and these policies will impact everyone. It is not essential for everyone to answer every question, but rather please feel free to only answer the questions that are relevant to you or the organisation you're responding on behalf of. We really do urge you to support these positive changes and opportunities. This is a chance for us all to make a difference. It will not be easy and there will be some challenges, but collectively we can all make a positive impact on the environment, on climate change, and our local economy. So, how can you respond to this consultation? We're seeking to encourage as many of you as possible to respond via Citizen Space. This is an easy online platform and will enable responses to be captured and evaluated much easier and much more quickly. You can access the Citizen Space platform by visiting the consultation page on the DERA website and clicking on the link for Rethinking Our Resources, Measures for Climate Action and a Circular Economy in Northern Ireland. It's vital that where you do not support or agree with the proposal, that you provide us with clear reasons for this. We're seeking evidence if you don't agree, and this needs to be in the form of substantiated and robust data. It is not enough to simply provide a viewpoint or opinion. If Citizen Space is not an option for you, then please contact my team via email at wastepolicyteam@dera-ni.gov.uk to discuss alternative formats. Responses must be submitted by 5 p.m. on Thursday the 30th of May 2024. Answers must be brief and limited to 1,000 characters. If referencing published reports, you can point to relevant sections. And as previously stated, there is no requirement to answer all of the questions. Please only respond to questions that apply to you or the organisation you are responding on behalf of. We thank you for your time and support, and we look forward to hearing your responses to this important consultation. Thank you for listening.